yeah, we were talking about a little bit about the Talmud and where
Well,
that
yeah.
came from and
The
stuff.
reason why Islam came up is because it's like there's narratives that Jews formed all of it, and then that got off topic to, oh well, maybe Rome created Islam, which people can get a little bit sloppy with claims like that, and it's like, oh well, hey, look, I have this Alberto Riviera source, so yeah, it's like about maybe like 2 years ago, I would have still been doing stuff like that, but I'm trying to be a little bit rigorous and hold myself to higher standards, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of real forgeries out there, so you know when it
Yeah.
comes to specific quotes about the Talmud being there that aren't true, aren't existent, do you have a timeline on when these quotes came about? Because what's going on now is a lot of people like put quotes and memes that are straight up forgeries, and
Yeah.
like it's not even authentic. It's like once you look into where that quote came from, it's completely dubious. But people keep repeating it, like, wait a second, this proves that Zionism came directly from the Talmud. This means that Jews have encoded beliefs which are just genocidal against Muslims and Christians. So that means that
Yeah.
anyone who's a Jew, they're part of an extremist cult that's like this that's like this threat to civilization, and it creates a narrative that isn't true whatsoever.
Yeah, the idea is it like back in the medieval times and up until the modern age, probably up until about the Bayless trial. The idea of the Talmud was absurdism and to prove that Jesus was being insulted, so blasphemies against Jesus. Like it was a very different mindset. And now, because we live in this post-racial age where the Jews want to kill all the white people and want to force white blonde-haired, blue-eyed women to marry black men and listen to jazz music, now the
Yeah.
Talmud quotes take on an entire different meaning. That it's like, well, now they want to kill whitey and kill all the white people, and here's their Talmud quotes that prove it. And I think that's what a lot of it evolved with the time. It went from what would have been, what it would have been insulting or offensive back in the medieval days and in the pre-Enlightenment days, and then it kind of skips the Enlightenment because I don't find. I haven't found, and I've read plenty of Protestant works. I really don't find any Protestants talking about Jews or the Talmud or any of this stuff. A lot of it is coming from the Catholic Church, including the Toldos Yeshu. I think we mentioned this last time. The Toldos Yeshu stories that are actually straight up being printed by the Catholic Church, including the one that claims that Peter himself was a Jew who self-apostatized to become to pull the Jesus movement away from Judaism, and that the first pope was an apostate, was a crypto Jew. So like that's how these things, how it
Peter wasn't
evolved.
even the first pope. Like that's not even true. Like it's just
Yeah.
so once you this is a little bit off topic, and we can get back to Talmud, but yeah, so just get me back to Talmud after this. But if you read Clement of Rome, he wrote around 96 AD. People will say Clement of Rome, look, he's writing to admonish the Corinthians. This is papal authority. But if you literally read the first few lines, he says, I am writing to you on behalf of the elders of the Church of Rome. So they'll say, oh, well, maybe you had more than one elder, but he was the head bishop. But no, what you're looking at is he is the scribe. He is the scribe writing an admonition to Corinth because they're out of hand. It's like they were out of hand in Paul's times too.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about there even being a straight up like Roman single bishop hierarchy going on. And there's no evidence that Peter went to Rome and became the first pope. It's like there's some claims that he died in Rome and was crucified upside down there, but it's like I tried looking for direct confirmation that it was Rome and that he went to Rome, and it's like maybe it's true, but it's a little bit dubious at that point. But the point is, it's like there's no evidence that Rome even was really like this single bishop kind of church model that even fits with those claims until around like mid second century, maybe even later.
Yeah. Yeah, so they basically they're the ones who have, in my opinion, they had to have been the ones who created this. And then I think it kind of comes back up at the Bilus trial where these
And what's the
canonized
years for that?
entities.
What's the years? Just refresh us.
1913. It's happening. It's happening nearly parallel to the Leo Frank trial, which I also believe was a Catholic show trial, or at least I'm using to skip that, call it a Jesuit show trial, because um, Mary Fagan was, of course, Catholic. Leo Frank was the head of the local B'nai B'rith chapter, and we know that the civil rights movement had a lot of connections to Freemasonry and the Eastern Stars. So it would make it just adds more fuel to that fire. But and right away they create, like they had in the medieval times, the Knights of Mary Fagan, which would have been the modern day version of, the shrine of Little Saint Hugh of Lincoln, for example. So the Bilus trial was also designed to humiliate the Russian Orthodox Church, because they brought on a defrocked priest, Justinius Parantus, who was supposedly an expert on the Talmud, and he could explain how blood libel was written in the Talmud. And there was a famous incident where he's being questioned as an expert witness, and the judge, the defense asks him, who was Baba Kama, when did she live, and what was her significance. So Baba Kama is one of the books of the I think it means like eighth gate or something like that, but it's one of the books of the Talmud, but it can also translate sort of to Grandma Kama, or so it might sound like, because Baba and then comma, so Grandma comma, and he goes, I don't know. And all the Jews in the audience just burst out laughing because of how ridiculous this was, that he had no idea what he was talking about. So it was a humiliation trial, which I believe was what it was for. And that, I believe, I do believe that, of course, that just like there are people who obsess over Leo Frank, there are people who probably in Eastern Europe going nuts over, oh yeah, the Bilus trial was, it was true, and like Dreyfus affair happened before
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Do you want
there
to
were
give a
all
brief
these
overview? I know.
attempts.
Hold on. We want to, because the Dreyfus affair. This is actually pretty important. Do you want to give a brief overview of that?
Yeah, I mean, so Dreyfus was he was a Jewish artillery officer, and he was accused of spying of sending information to the Germans, and the whole time they knew it was another guy named Esterhazy who was actually the agent. But instead of they decided to make a big show out of blaming Dreyfus, they sent him into exile, and he was finally exonerated years later. But the Dreyfus affair basically became the foundation for, it may not be safe. Jews may never be French. It's never going to happen. Like, Jews can never
Yeah, Jews are
assimilate.
not. Yeah. Jews cannot assimilate into society. They always have these interests, and now it's turning into their de facto against whitey. And
Yeah.
even memes where you have like you did you see that ridiculous meme? Did you see that ridiculous meme where it's like you have these towers that are both like next to each
Yep.
other, and you have a Muslim on one side and a Christian on the other side, and you have a Jew pushing them apart where they're just trying to reach each other. Like, they just want to be best friends. Muslims and Christians, they just want to be best friends, but it's the Jews keeping them apart.
Yep.
it's
It's hilarious.
it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Especially because Jews don't have a concept of tekiah. That's one of the funny things that I hear, is that, but there is no Jewish concept of tekiah. It's actually forbidden to lie about what's in the Torah or what's in the Talmud. There is a Talmud story that's related about a rabbi who teaches the entire written and oral law to two Roman soldiers, and they admit that they were only offended by two things in it. So that's related in the Talmud. So, and it said you're not allowed to lie about what's in the Jewish law. That actually goes back to one of the Talmud quotes. That's actually one of my favorite.
How about let's get to the Talmud quotes? Let's get the Talmud quotes. I just wanna read to them. Well, okay, before we get started, what are goys? What are goyim?
Goy means nation. Now you can, so if you want to, so goy just means nation. So in Genesis, God says to Abraham, "Aselecha goy gadol, I will make you a great nation." So Jews are and Israel are referred to as goy also in the Torah. So the actual word it means, now it can be used derogatorily when it's used out of context, the same way that the N word means black, but you can also use it to offend somebody. So it can have the double connotation, but the actual definition of the word is nation. That's it.
Yeah. So because it sounds like it's this dirty word, and like it's this insult, like, oh well, you're just a goy, you're just shit under my shoe that I stepped and I just want to get up. That's the kind of impression it's being presented with right now.
No, I mean, listen, people can use it any way they want, but from its original context and from what it means, God refers to the people. God says to Abraham, "E'asecha legoy gadol, I will make you a great." Does he say, "I'm going to make you a great filth"? Like, no, he's telling Abraham, "I'm going to make you a great nation." So, I mean, it just means nation, but it's the same thing as like the N word. I'm not going to say because I don't want to get us in trouble, but the N word means black. It's another word for black. It's an archaic word, but it means black. It can be used derogatorily. The word Jew itself can be, used. It's not a derogatory word. Yehudi, Yahud. It's not derogatory, but it can be used derogatorily. In fact, like in Russia, if they want to refer to Jews respectfully, they call them Ivri, which are Hebrews. If they want to refer to them derogatorily, they refer to them as Yid, which sounds like Yid, Yehudi, Yehudi. Even the Yiddish language, Yid, that's kind of, it can be derogatory, but it's not. So it's one of those things that it's like, it's the semantics of it. But the actual definition of the word goy is nations or nation.
Well, like, hey, but you see goy being thrown around as a slur, then hey, you see quotes like this. So Soferim, it's Soferim, says even the best goyim should be killed. Hey, that's from the Talmud. Like they're teaching Jews that Gentiles goy are worthless, so obviously they can't live side by side with whitey.
So I'm going to read I just want to check the Hebrew quick and see if it actually uses that term. If it actually says goy in the word itself. How about going on about it's long, but I just want to see if I find no, it doesn't even say that. So
it's like a lot of these it doesn't even look like it doesn't, just really quick, it doesn't look, so some of these ones they're not even straight up forgeries. It's like they're the worst possible translations pulled completely out of context, and sometimes they'll even like insert words in there that aren't there to give you the context. And then like there's some if you look at the word, like if you look at the original sentence, like there's some plausible deniability where, hey, maybe it actually was saying that, but like no, I've fallen for this before, but like I looked more at, sure enough, it's like, wait a second, these quotes, people were showing quotes from the Jewish encyclopedia to back this up that are complete forgeries. Wait a second, this isn't even the it's like this stuff really like doesn't have anything to back it. Yeah, that's why I'm going through it.
So if you want me to read what the English of Sephorim says before I can explain
yes, go
it,
for
I
it.
can
Yeah. Let's do it thorough.
All right.
Yeah.
So Abba Gurion of Jadian said the name of Abba Guria. A man should not teach his son to be an ass driver, sailor, wagoner, shepherd, or shopkeeper because their occupations are robbery. Rab Judah quoting him, and ass drivers are mostly wicked, but sailors are mostly pious. The best of physicians are, in quotes, destined for Gehenna, hell. or the shit place. And most worthy of butchers is Amalek's partner. Bastards are mostly keen-witted, slaves are mostly arrogant, the children of reputed parents are mostly bashful, and children usually resemble their mother's brother. That's actually really funny because that's true. I'm very much like my uncle. Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai taught, kill the best of the heathens in the time of war. Crush the brain of the best serpents. The most worthy of women indulges in witchcraft. Happy is he who does the will of the omnipresent. So, in a discussion of generalities, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, "Even the best members of your enemy nation you should kill in the time of war, instead of having mercy on them." This is rooted in the Exodus from Egypt. It is said that after the plagues, when the Jews were in the midst of the sea, they were pursued by Pharaoh and the rest of the Egyptians on chariots. Now, how could they have chariots if all their animals died in the plague? Those who feared God brought them inside as per Moses. So they believed in the words of Moses. They believed that God was sending the plagues on Egypt, and yet they still decided, after seeing everything, all the miracles they saw, and knowing what they put the Jewish people through, to pursue them at sea in order to kill them. This is why Rabbi Shimon says, in the time of war, don't have mercy on the best of your enemies, but rather kill them. We can see from this that they might have been the best members of their society, but they still ultimately wanted to go through with their murderous intents. So if you're at war with a nation, and like World War I, and the guy across from you and who's shooting at you is a famous artist, are you gonna not be like, oh, that's a famous artist, I'm not gonna shoot him? No, you're at war. So when you're at war, you kill people. That's what war is. So it's basically just saying, as from in Egypt, the Egyptians saw the God of Israel and his capabilities. They did what Moses told them and brought their animals inside, saving them from the plague, and yet they still chose to chase them. So these were technically, by a Jewish standard, the best people in their society, but they still chose to go to war with them. So what do? You go to war with them. Does that make sense? So I guess so Mike might be a little busy, so I'll go on to the next one. I'm reading from.
Oh, hey, I was muted. My
No,
bad.
you're good.
I was trying to talk. I was like, hey, why is he ignoring me? Yeah, no. Yebamuth 98A. All children of Goyim are animals.
Excuse me. So, fake translation and out of context. There's a discussion about what happens when identical twin brothers converted. One marries a Jewish woman and dies without having an heir. Does his existing brother perform a levirate marriage or give her a form of divorce? This is a whole debate over whether or not it's permitted to do a levirate marriage. One of the arguments that is brought is that since there is so much licentiousness in the non-Jewish nation at the time, we don't know who is anyone's father. As such, we don't allow it. To back this opinion, a verse from Ezekiel about the licentiousness of the Egyptians that compares their views on relationships with the way animals mate with each other without caring about who they mate with. So in no way does it say that the children of non-Jews are animals. So just to give a little further context, and once again, this is something that a lot of Christians seem to forget, especially Groyper Christians. Judaism existed for 3,000 years before Christians did. Judaism watched many pagan cultures come and go. In many of the ancient pagan cultures, which you know about in the book of Noah, they practiced sexual hospitality. Okay, so there was no prophylactics. So if your wife got pregnant, did she get pregnant with her husband's baby or the neighbor's baby? They didn't care. That was still considered his kid. So because Jews only have children through in wedlock, you can't have bastards. The question became, and this is of course talking about the pre-Christian world, can you perform a levirate marriage? A levirate marriage is if a married brother dies Does his unmarried brother marry the wife? And the answer is no, you can't, because you don't actually know if they're blood brothers, even if they're, even if they came from the same house and converted together. So it has nothing to do with Christians either.
Yeah. Like they frame it like anyone that's non-religious. They play Mott and Bailey between ethnicities. So they sometimes frame it like this is an ethnic context where certain races are targeted to be exterminated. But other times, like, well, yeah, any religion that's not Judaism, they gotta go too. So it's like it'll end up switching between them. But here's another one, Baba Mezia. Not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. 144b. Gentiles, goys, are not humans. They are beasts. Like similar thing there. It's like, I just want to go through a little bit of the history on this because it's like there's a longer list of these quotes that people like to throw around, but I wanna give like a large amount just so like you can see how much of it's being taken out of context, and it's a lot of people are being so deceived by this. It's quite astonishing because it's like once you start doing like a bare minimum of the research is like, wait a second, this is dubious. Am I repeating things I can't prove? And yeah, like you don't repeat things you can't prove.
Right. So this is a fake translation and completely out of context. In short, there's a discussion about the idea of ritual purity and whether or not a corpse of a non-Jew renders you impure if you touch their grave or not. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, no, and here's why. He quotes the verse in relation to ritual purity that says that only Jews are called Adam, which means man. Now, anti-Semites translate this meaning man, except there are 4 terms that define man: Adam, Ish, Enosh, and Gever, and they all have different spiritual meanings. So Shimon is not saying here non-Jews are not human. There's nothing about how non-Jews are a beast at all are mentioned here. In fact, the ones being compared to animals are Jews, sheep. So what the word Adam refers to Jews in a state of ritual purity. That's it. It translates to man, but so does Gever and so does Ish.
Well, yeah. I noticed. Yeah. I noticed sometimes when you look at these quotes, it's like they use terms that are translated as like universal humanity into goy. Because like, wait, universal humanity. Well, you could say that's nations. Nations. Well, that's goy, and goy, that sounds like shit underneath my shoe, and that can get the groypers riled up.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. Then here, apparently, like it's okay. It's okay to like. I'll just read it. Aboda Zarha.
You skipped one.
Okay. Jad Saz 2:2. A Jew may violate but not marry a non-Jew girl. Oh yeah. No, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was about to read that, but then I was reading the wrong one, so I was like, wait a second, I don't want to. Yeah. That's that's why I stumbled over myself a little bit. But yeah, that's the one I was looking for. So yeah, apparently, what I was saying earlier is apparently it's okay for Jews to take and rape a non-Jew girl. Yeah. And they'll also cite the Old Testament. They'll also cite the Old Testament where you have the Canaanite invasion, where you have like, hey, you can kill the men, but don't kill the women and like certain. Oh no, actually, some points it did say to wipe out the men, women, and children. But then there's other times where it says like, don't take the women and children. So it's like, oh hey, like you're taking people you conquered, you're taking their wives. So hey, that's obviously they'll use that to make it look legit too.
Well, God Shas is a fake quote. There's no such thing as God Shas. In fact, both the Bible and the Talmud prescribe lashes for a man who engages in relations with a non-Jewish girl, whether for pleasure or marriage. Such unions are not legally recognized as marriage. So let me just repeat that again because of how stupid this is. That book doesn't even exist.
Yeah. It's like, it's like a lot of times not even forgeries. It's like they're just quotes made out of thin air. So yeah, onto the other one. Gentile goy girls are in a state of filth from birth.
So that's the word nida. So fake translation and out of context. Yes, non-Jewish girls are considered nida from birth. So is the status of any non-Jewish woman who is unmarried as well. and married women for nearly half the month. It has nothing to do with filth at all. Nidah is ritual impurity. And women, Jewish women, become nidah when they're on their period. So it doesn't mean filth, it means ritually impure. And basically what the quote's telling you is don't even touch a non-Jewish woman. Don't go near them. Stay away from them. I don't know why groypers would be upset by that, but yes, you cannot touch or go near a non-Jewish woman. You're not supposed to. They are ritually impure. So you're not supposed to touch your wife when she's having her period either. You're not supposed to go near.
Well, it's like it's like Corinthians. It's like Corinthians where it says be not equally yoked. It's like, hey, maybe some Christians will marry non-Christians, and it's like that doesn't mean they're not saved or real Christians, but like that's a biblical commandment too. It's like, why would you want to yoke yourself with someone that's like ideologically opposed to you? You know, that's that's pretty much the idea there. Oh yeah.
And in fact, the reason why the rabbis decreed that non-Jewish women are considered to be in a state of nidah from birth is to make it even worse punishment if a Jew were to stay and have relations with one of them. The Torah is really big into not intermarriage, lots of verses. So the Bible
Yeah,
itself
it's the
tells
Old
you not to
Testament.
intermarry.
It's Old Testament and New Testament. It's I that's the one of the fundamental like premises that Judaism and Christianity have opposed is like who Christ is. So it's like I'm not even like trying. It's like that's obviously something I differ majorly with it, but it's like if I can look at the Old Testament and New Testament and be like, wait a second, this quote that people are saying proves Jews are like inherently evil and murderous against Gentiles. It's like that's just bullshit, dude. Like, you know, yeah, because it's like some people will look at the fact that I'm doing this and be like, hey, you're shilling for the Talmud. It's like I fell for this shit before. Like whatever the person trying to say that's gonna say, like I probably fell for that line. So no, like that's not what's going on. And that yeah, so here's another one. So it's Sanhedrin 54b. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. And then what they'll also do is be like, oh yeah, look at how circumcisions work. Jews are encouraged to suck baby penises. Seriously, that's how bad the discourse is.
Well, that's actually very interesting because that's actually, so basically there are about a dozens of ways to perform a circumcision, but if you're going to perform the way Jews do it is probably the most archaic. And for most of history, we did not have surgical suction, and the only way you could do suction during surgical procedures was orally. I actually have an entire paper written on the history of what's called negative wound pressure therapy, because the Roman legions had whole sections of their army devoted to sucking wounds, because that was the only way that you could perform surgical procedure.
Yeah.
It's not a sexual act. Okay, look, let's say in the future we figure out a way to perform gynecology exams without having to put your hands into a woman's vagina. Does that mean that for most of history we sexually abused our women at the doctor's office? No, it just means that that most of history we didn't have the technology that we have now. So when you go to the when you go to the dentist and he puts that little hook in your mouth to suck out all your saliva so he can work, we didn't have that for surgical procedures. So literally part of a surgeon's job was to suck the wound and to clear it in order to work. And because a lot of Jews will do the surgical the procedure of a circumcision is a surgical procedure when you take the ritual out of it. So you're doing a surgical procedure, and if you want to do it the way that it had been done for most of history, you're doing it. And also it's not done straight orally. It's usually done with something else because you have to be more precise than what your wide mouth is going to be able to do. So you have to use a tool for it anyway. And because Jews are not allowed to drink blood, it still has to be spit out. Nevertheless, you can see it as an archaic form of surgical procedure, but for most of history, including Jesus himself, who was a circumcised Jew, that's how it would have been done to him, because that is the only way they could perform negative wound pressure therapy for 99% of history. If you ever watch the show, it's funny because this occurred to me when I was watching a show called The Nick about a hospital in New York City in like the turn of the 20th century, and one of the doctors is experimenting with vacuum suction, and it sprang into my mind. I was like, "Holy that makes perfect sense now." So for most of history, for part of history, they did have like they could do stuff with like cups and heat them up, and they could use that to do it. But on certain organs, and for most of history anyway, you didn't have anything more than your mouth. And that is how surgical procedures were done. You don't have to like it, but that was most of our history.
Well, yes. Then what about the Sanhedrin 54b that a Jew may have sex with a child as long as a child is less than 9 years old? Where does that come
This
from?
is a fake translation, wildly out of context. This is a discussion specifically about forbidden relationships and whether it makes you susceptible to the death penalty. What's debated here is whether the person who engages in such horrible actions is put to death. The sages determined that before the age of 9, children are completely unaware and don't understand what relations are. Between the ages of 9 and 13, while they do understand, they are not considered guilty, whether passive or active. The whole discussion here is about the victimizer. So here the Jewish that codified is that if a man forces someone between ages of 9 and 13 to engage with him, that person gets the death penalty and his victim does not. And under the age of 9, he does not get the death penalty, but rather he gets lashes in public. The fact that he gets lashes for it instead of the death penalty doesn't mean it's less of a crime. It's because it's be considered something other than having relations, because a child of that age is unable to understand what is happening to him. For the record, Jewish law also permits you to straight up kill the victimizer if you catch him in the act and it's necessary to stop. So it's not like he's being protected, and we don't believe his crime is not something heinous. Now, what some people will do is they're going to say that in the Talmud, they'll say, oh, having sex with a child is like nothing. So what they're doing is they're taking Talmudic legalese, they're translating it into English and putting the definition of the word that they know onto a translation of a word that's already legalese. When something is like nothing in Talmudic legalese, it doesn't mean that it's cool. It means that there is no charges held against. So let's use the context that I just gave with a guy who you walk into a room and you catch a guy doing something to your child and you kill him. The murder is like nothing for you because you're not held legally responsible. You were defending someone. So when they say it's like nothing, it doesn't mean that it's perfectly cool. You're wildly mistranslating. It's Talmudic legalese for no charges held against or no penalty held against. So under the age of 3, and this is why they explain also when they say it's like sticking a finger in an eyeball. So under the age of 3, what happens is they say it can be regenerated, the woman's hymen. But the thing is, though, is that if it's like nothing for her because she has no idea what the hell's going on. No child under 9 does. So the child is considered like nothing. No charges are held against them. So let's say they're ready to get married. Do they get married as a virgin or with a virgin dowry or without one? Well, the answer is as long as they've continued their life in chaste, as long as they haven't done anything otherwise, then they can get a virgin dowry because what happened to them was like nothing. They can't be held responsible for something that they didn't participate in and they were not an active participant in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I had to charge my phone really quick. How's my audio coming through without my earbuds?
A little lower. It's coming through a little bit lower, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna put them back in soon. But yeah, here's another one. When a Jew murders a Gentile, there will be no death penalty. So this is another one they appeal to, where it's like, hey, legally recognized non-Jews are not shit, and you can do whatever you want to them. That's how it's usually framed in these memes. Because I've even seen memes. I've seen memes end up using this. Like, it's not even like these kind of like collections of scary quotes. It's just like it'll show a violent act being committed, or it'll be some kind of video, and it'll be like, oh, look, this is just part of their religion, so they can do it, and it's okay.
Yep. And that's Psalm 157a.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So this is a fake translation plus out of context. Here there is a whole discussion about the 7 laws of Noah and whether a non-Jew who transgresses them is liable to the death penalty or not. Here the Talmud states that the laws against murder are stronger for non-Jews. As codified in Jewish law, a non-Jew who kills a fetus, for example, is going to be put to death, while it may not be the case for a Jew, depending on the case. Same if he killed someone who was dying or put them in a situation where they died indirectly because of them. So if a non-Jew hired a hitman, locked someone and left them to starve to death or push them in front of a lion, they will be put to death, while a Jew may not be in this situation. That doesn't mean that the Jew is allowed to do such a thing. A Jew will, in fact, be punished. The only distinction here is the 7 laws you can't violate. You can do whatever you want, but otherwise you deserve the death penalty if you violate them. Think of Adam in the garden being told he has to do one thing and one thing only. Breaking it is much worse. Since for Jews there are 613, there are more laws. There are more punishments than just the death penalty or nothing, which means that in certain cases, a Jew might be punished with lashes or spend the rest of his life in prison versus being put to death. Doesn't mean that non-Jewish lives don't matter. So it's basically because so the 7, first off, the 7 Noahide laws are not designed to own you and to like put you under some kind of not authoritarianism.
What are Noahide laws? Hold on, can you explain really quick what Noahide laws are, though? Because I'm aware, but a lot of people wouldn't be. So what are Noahide laws? And also, I just want to point out that Jewish supremacists want to put everything under Noahide law, and it turns out to be like this really scary thing that a lot of people just mouth off about and don't really understand that well.
And especially because actually there are 7 that there said that there may be more, but basically after the Noah the deluge, God makes a covenant with the world that there are 7 laws that they're not supposed that nobody breaks. So there are 613 laws that apply to Jews, and there are only 7 that should apply to the rest of the world. Now, just to point out, in Luke Acts, they're mentioned. They're mentioned because in a discussion between James and Paul, they discuss what extent Jews have to keep, what extent converts have to keep the law, and they say that the Noahide laws, or the 7 laws of Noah, are good enough. So the first one is: do not deny God, do not practice idolatry, do not blaspheme, do not curse God, do not murder, do not engage in sexual immorality, do not steal, do not eat the flesh of a living animal, and establish courts of justice. Now, once again, nobody's obligated to keep them, but if you're going to keep them, then you're actually converts, and people who choose to opt in are held to a higher standard than Jews. So if you convert to Judaism, or if you opt to keep the 7 laws, then that's why. Now, once again, how often does this come up? Like, how often does it come up that you have people who are claiming to be Noahides killing somebody, then going to a Jewish court to be sentenced? This is all so Jewish law works through a process called ex post facto, which means that the situation doesn't necessarily have to happen for them to figure out how to solve it. So one of the examples I give is abortion. So a lot of people will say, and even Jews, you'll hear your idiot Jews say this, and it's retarded. They'll say, oh, the Talmud says, or the rabbis say that if the life of a woman, that abortion is okay, because if the doctor comes in and says, if we don't abort this baby, mom and baby will both die together, then you're allowed to abort the baby to save the mother's life. So thus abortion is legal. So that's not what it's saying. The rabbis heard all the same arguments that everybody else have. So they hear that too. Because how many times do you hear that from pro-abortion people? Well, what happens if the pregnancy, if the mom is going to die, and blah, 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 blah. So the rabbi said, look, if it happens to happen, that an Orthodox Jewish woman is laying in a hospital bed, God forbid, and she's pregnant, and a doctor comes in and says, listen, Rivki, if you don't abort that baby, you're both going to die. Do it. The Jewish men or the Jewish woman don't go have to run to a rabbi to get an answer. Just save the mother's life. Fine. But it doesn't mean abortion for convenience is acceptable. It doesn't even allow. It's actually a huge, I can look it up what the penalty is. I do believe there is a death penalty for killing a fetus in Judaism. But Jews have
It's in the yeah
613 laws.
it's in the Torah actually. It's not just a Talmud thing. It's even like the if you end up like roughing up a woman, I forgot the way it's worded in Mosaic law. But if like you're roughing up a woman and you kill the child in it, that's death penalty for the person. So that there you go. You have all the logic right there.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that there are 613 laws that Jews have to keep, and of which 3 are automatic death penalties. But like I said, not every, even in our, let's say here in New York, we make a law and oh shit, did I just, oh, sorry. I thought I just accidentally clicked out.
You said if you were talking, I was talking about the case of abortion. You were talking about how Jews have to follow 600 something laws, because I gave the example of a fetus getting killed. Okay.
So let's say here in New York, we make a law that says that if in the course of an act of sexual violence, the victim gets killed, doesn't matter how. So let's say you sexually assault, God forbid someone gets sexually assaulted in a car while they're driving home, the car hits a tree, the victim dies. So they say, okay, you automatically get the death penalty. If you commit a sexual assault and there's a death involved and a death happens to the victim, and for whatever reason, you automatically get the death penalty. Okay. Now, now we say, okay, well, if what happens if someone commits an act, but let's say they commit a sexual assault, but they don't commit, but a murder doesn't take place, does that mean there's no death penalty? Does that mean that there's no legal consequences? Let's say if somebody turns around and they committed a murder without a sexual assault, is it automatically a death sentence, even under our law? No, because there are circumstances to the situation, and there are different, and they can be different for different states, for different cities, for different counties. The laws can change. So Gentiles are only held to 7 laws that if they choose to keep, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So if they choose to keep them, they're held to a different standard. They're held to a higher standard because they're choosing to do it. If they don't, so for some things with Jewish law, there may not be a death penalty right away, but for 7 Noahide laws, in that case, there would be a death penalty. So once again, it's not saying that Christian lives or non-Jewish lives don't matter.